The morning sun bathed the village in a golden hue, its rays dancing on the thatched roofs and earthen paths. It was the kind of day that usually brought warmth to the heart, but not for Doreen. She sat on a worn wooden stool outside her modest hut, watching the village buzz with an unusual excitement. The news had spread quickly: Velma was coming home. Doreen's fingers traced the frayed edges of her faded skirt as she listened to the chatter of the villagers. They were all preparing for Velma's visit, their hearts brimming with gratitude and anticipation. Velma, the girl who had once been one of them, was now a beacon of hope and prosperity. She had married David, a wealthy man from the city, and had built a thriving life far removed from the simple, hard existence of the village. Doreen's eyes flickered with a mixture of emotions: nostalgia, sadness, and an unwelcome pang of envy. She remembered the days when she and Velma worked side by side in the fields, laughing and dreaming about a brighter future. But while Velma's dreams had come true, Doreen's had crumbled into dust. Her husband, once a strong and hopeful man, had been out of work for years. Their children wore clothes patched over and over, and meals were meager, often stretching thin to feed the whole family. Life had been unkind, and it seemed that every door had closed on them. As the sun climbed higher, Doreen's thoughts darkened. The joy that once filled her heart when she thought of Velma now felt like a distant memory. "Why her?" she murmured, clutching her skirt tighter. "Why did she get everything while we were left with nothing?" The sound of children's laughter brought her back to the present. She looked up and saw her own children playing in the dirt, their clothes hanging loosely on their thin frames. The sight deepened the ache in her chest. Meanwhile, on the other side of the village, Velma's arrival was a whirlwind of activity. The car, packed to the brim with gifts and supplies, pulled up near her parents' old home. The villagers gathered, their faces lighting up as Velma and her family stepped out, their presence a testament to the life of success they had built. Velma's children, one girl and two boys, jumped around excitedly, soaking in the festive atmosphere. David, tall and dignified, helped unload the car, smiling warmly at the crowd. Velma embraced each villager, her generosity shining as she handed out gifts and food. Doreen watched from a distance, her heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. She wanted to feel happy for Velma, to be the friend who rejoiced in her success. But the weight of her own struggles made it hard to breathe, let alone celebrate. The day wore on, and Doreen remained in her seat, the shadows growing longer around her. She felt the envy tightening its grip, a poisonous whisper that wouldn't be silenced. She knew she should turn away, find solace in her own family, but she couldn't stop watching. Velma's joy felt like a mirror reflecting all that Doreen lacked. As the villagers gathered around Velma, thanking her for her kindness, Doreen whispered again, this time with a hint of bitterness, "Why her? Why not me?" The village market was alive with activity, a vibrant mosaic of colors, sounds, and smells. Women in bright kitenge fabrics sat behind makeshift stalls, their tables laden with fresh produce, handmade crafts, and small household goods. The air was thick with the aroma of spices, freshly baked bread, and the distant sizzle of roasting meat. Velma walked through the bustling crowd, her heart light, enjoying the familiar sights and sounds of her childhood. She hadn't been back in months, and everything felt both nostalgic and refreshing. She exchanged warm greetings with the market women, who beamed at her, their eyes filled with admiration and gratitude. As she rounded a corner, her eyes landed on a figure she hadn't seen in years. Doreen, her childhood friend, was balancing a small bundle of goods on her head, her face drawn with weariness. The sight stopped Velma in her tracks. "Doreen!" Velma called out, her voice bright with surprise and delight. Doreen turned, her eyes widening in recognition before a strained smile crossed her lips. She carefully lowered the bundle to the ground and approached Velma with slow, hesitant steps. Velma, is it really you? Doreen's voice was soft, almost disbelieving. It's me. Velma reached out and embraced her old friend. It's been too long. The two women stood for a moment, caught in the warmth of their reunion. But as they pulled apart, Velma couldn't help but notice the shadows under Doreen's eyes, the lines etched deeply into her once youthful face. How have you been? Velma asked, her voice tinged with concern. Doreen looked away, her smile fading. I manage, she replied, her tone flat. Life has been challenging. Velma's heart ached at the words. She glanced at the modest bundle of goods Doreen had been carrying, noting how little it was compared to the bustling stalls around them. Let's talk, Velma said gently, taking Doreen's hand. I want to hear everything. They found a quiet spot near the edge of the market, away from the noise. Doreen sighed deeply, her shoulders sagging as if releasing a heavy burden. After you left for the city, she began, things changed. My husband lost his job, and we've been struggling ever since. There's never enough money, and every day feels like a battle to survive. Velma listened, her eyes softening with empathy. She reached out, covering Doreen's hand with hers. I'm so sorry, Doreen. I had no idea. It's not your fault, Doreen said quickly, though her eyes betrayed the bitterness she tried to hide. You've done well for yourself, Velma. I'm happy for you. Velma felt a pang of guilt. She had been fortunate, but she knew that luck and opportunity were not evenly distributed. I want to help, she said firmly. Come to my home tomorrow. Bring your family. We'll have a proper meal together, and I can give you some things to make things easier. Doreen hesitated, pride warring with desperation. But the thought of her children going to bed with full stomachs was too tempting to resist. She nodded slowly. Thank you, Velma. That's very kind of you. As they parted, Velma felt a sense of purpose. She would do everything she could to lift her friend out of hardship. But Doreen walked away with a heavy heart, the weight of her envy growing with every step. The thought of accepting charity from Velma gnawed at her, fueling a simmering resentment that would soon boil over into something far more dangerous. The next day, Doreen and her family visited Velma's home. They were greeted warmly, with a feast prepared in their honor. Velma's children played happily with Doreen's, and the air was filled with laughter and joy. After the meal, Velma brought out bags of clothes her children had outgrown, along with extra food and some money. These are for you, Velma said with a gentle smile. I want to help in any way I can. Doreen forced a smile as she accepted the gifts, her heart heavy with envy. Her children's eyes sparkled with excitement at the sight of the new clothes, but Doreen's mind was clouded with bitterness. The sight of Velma's generosity felt like a reminder of her own struggles, igniting a simmering anger within her. That night, unable to sleep, Doreen paced her small home, her mind consumed by thoughts of Velma's success. The envy twisted her thoughts until she could think of nothing but reversing their fortunes. She confided in her neighbor, who spoke of the village's native doctor, a man known for his dark arts. There's a way to turn this around, the neighbor whispered. The native doctor can help. Take the clothes Velma gave you to him. He will perform incantations, and their fortune will vanish. They will suffer, and you will rise. Doreen, her judgment clouded by jealousy, agreed. The next morning, she packed all the clothes Velma had given her into a bundle and made her way to the native doctor's hut on the outskirts of the village. The native doctor welcomed her with a knowing smile, sensing the dark purpose in her heart. Doreen explained her plan, and the doctor listened intently, nodding as she spoke. He took the bundle of clothes, spread them out on the floor, and began to chant incantations over them. The original owners of these garments, he intoned, his voice low and menacing, will suffer untreatable ailments. Their health will fail, and their fortune will fade. They will know no peace. Doreen watched, a mix of fear and anticipation gripping her as the doctor completed the ritual. He handed the bundle back to her, the clothes now imbued with his dark magic. Return these to your home, he instructed. Their power will work from a distance. Doreen left the hut, her heart pounding, unsure of what she had set in motion. Back in the city, Velma's family returned to their daily routines, but strange things began to happen. Velma and her children were soon struck by unexplained ailments. Fevers, persistent fatigue, and mysterious rashes plagued them. They visited doctors, but no treatment seemed to work. David's business, which had been thriving, started facing unexpected setbacks. Deals fell through, clients vanished, and financial strain gripped the family. What was once a joyful home became a place of worry and despair. Velma, overwhelmed by the inexplicable suffering, turned to her faith. She believed in the power of prayer and sought solace in her nightly prayers, asking for healing and protection for her family. She fasted, prayed fervently, and reached out to her church community for support. Together, they prayed for deliverance from whatever darkness had befallen them. One night, Velma had a vivid dream. In it, she saw Doreen and the native doctor's incantations over the clothes. She woke with a start, realizing their troubles were not coincidental but the result of a malevolent act. She intensified her prayers, asking not only for her family's healing but also for forgiveness for Doreen. Her faith grew stronger, and she prayed against any curse or spell cast upon them, believing that love and prayer could overcome any evil. Gradually, Velma and her children's health improved. The mysterious ailments disappeared, and David's business began to recover, with new opportunities emerging. The dark cloud that had hung over their home lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of hope and gratitude. In the village, Doreen's life had not improved as she had hoped. The guilt of her actions weighed heavily on her, and the native doctor's promises of prosperity proved empty. Hearing of Velma's recovery, she felt a deep shame for what she had done. Unable to bear the burden of her guilt, Doreen traveled to the city to seek Velma's forgiveness. She confessed everything, her voice trembling with remorse. Velma, though hurt by the betrayal, embraced Doreen with compassion. "You were my friend once, Doreen," Velma said gently. "Let's leave this darkness behind and move forward together." Doreen wept, overwhelmed by Velma's forgiveness. She vowed to change, and with Velma's support, she began to rebuild her life, learning that true strength and prosperity came from kindness, faith, and forgiveness, not from jealousy or dark deeds.